Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Rogue Trader with me, Bring It Dawn. We didn't see this dialogue last time. I have a tool that will allow me to check the status of the distant compartments that are out of Vox contact. We have to wait for Mort's results first. The massive golden structure never stops moving for a moment. Light bounces off the orbits and figures representing celestial bodies.
Is there money to be made?
I'll walk around while we wait for Abelard's response. As you wish, Lady Theodora.
I always keep my options open. Let us not dawdle.
Oh no.
Rise to the top or get left in the dust.
Another heretic. Conrad Voigtvir lets out a sigh of relief upon seeing you. Thank Providence you're alive and well. Always on time, eh, Conrad? The moment we finish chasing the riffraff around the deck, you show up. Always just after the fighting's done. You can set your chrono by it. Conrad pointedly looks away from the Arch Militant to you. Mort, pull yourself together. The Arch Militant looks back at you. What, did the Lord Captain send you to chivvy us along? We're all done here. I'll report right away. Mort pulls his box from the belt and hurriedly reports on the situation. Master of Whispers, what is happening on my ship? The Voxnet is silent. The Vox Master is not responding. Armed assailants have stormed the officer's deck. My Arch Militant just destroyed several more heretics on the way here. Is this a severe case of warp madness? Have some of my crew lost their minds and forgotten who they are and whom they serve? Report. I have not yet received word from the Enginarium regarding any Gellerfield failures. My communications were already unstable half an hour ago. Now they have ceased altogether. Whatever the cause may be, the consequences are spreading fast. I'm receiving scattered reports from the middle decks, and the only Vox cast in the lower bays are one-way heretical gibberish. Voigtvir pauses. That the madmen have already reached the officer's deck suggests that this outrage was planned in advance. Perhaps this is an organized mutiny. Yeah, let's go with option 2. So typically when I start games like this, I try not to take any sides of, I guess, the deities or factions that I'm not familiar with. But I am familiar with the setting, and I'm going to lean into the Imperium in this playthrough. So yeah, option 2. A mutiny against the Emperor's Anointed. Execute the traitors, every last one of them. First, we have to confirm that the bridge and the Navigator's Sanctum are secure, and have the means to do both things at once. Her expression changes as her eyes flash ominously. Theodora looks at Voigtvir. Ethelthrad, where is he? I must know if he is unharmed. A psyker aboard a ship that is potentially being assailed by the warp could pose a greater threat to himself and others than a whole army of madmen with improvised weapons. I tried to locate him. The last thing known about his movements is that he arrived on Transitional Deck 18. Blasted. Master of Whispers, find Ethelthrad immediately. Seneschal, locate Tlass and the Sister of Battle. Both are to remain at my side. Arch Militant with me. I must go to my study. It appears we might encounter heretics along the way. Donald, Theodora glances at you thoughtfully. If I may, Lord Captain. Voidfair's voice is soft and cautious. Transitional Deck 18 is at the heart of the disturbance, and if our goal is to bring Ethelthred back, I could use some support. After all, I'm not as adept at directly confronting enemies of the house as the esteemed Archmilitant, and taking into consideration Ethelthred's psychic powers. Then it's settled. Donald, find Ethelthred and bring him here, in whatever state you find him. This elevator, she points at the massive doors, leads to restricted compartments such as my personal chambers and the bridge. Do not let me down. I require you both. Do you understand? I hear and obey, Lord Captain. My character would have a respect for the chain of command. Theodora waves a hand impatiently. Then move out. Mort, come. Portbear gives you a nod. Are you ready to head to 18? It is a long walk, and you do not even have proper gear. I shall make do. Lead the way. Of course you will. He rummages in his pocket for something. Lady Theodora would never have someone she couldn't rely on as one of her heirs, but that is no longer relevant. With a pop and a sharp crackle, something hits you in the abdomen, and you're consumed by unbearable, gut-wrenching pain. I promise you a special destiny, Donald. It is time to fulfill it. He's going to try and use my blood to steal the warrant of trade. I'm willing to bet. The warrant of trade is a pretty big deal. It's got a drop of the Emperor's blood on it. And that is extraordinarily valuable. And powerful. But also, he was voice acted. I assumed he was going to betray us at some point.
Careful, careful. Be gentle with our guest. He has an important mission to complete during our visit to the warrant chamber. And for that, I need him breathing. Oh, you are back with us, I see. Delightful.
Voidfair looks down at you. What is the meaning of this?
You must have hit your head harder than I thought. No matter. Very little is required of you. Just your blood, which you can either share of your own volition, or I will spill it for you. We are in the anteroom of the warrant chamber, this void ship's most hallowed vault. There, beyond those gates, lies the relic that gives Theodora all of her power. The sacred warrant of trade. Only one obstacle remains on my path to obtaining it. The gates of the chamber are guarded by the sentinel. An ancient device that will only open the door to a true heir of the dynasty. I expected to do this part myself, but never mind. You will offer your blood to the sentinel.
Why are you doing this?
Why? Because I am following an order. What is happening on this ship right now has been in the making for a very long time. All that remains is to obtain what my masters sent me for. The warrant of trade.
Yeah, I'm a little angry that he backstabbed me and now has me detained. But let's try to rile him up. What is it, inbred? Is your blood too thin for the sentinel?
On the contrary, the warp's blessing has raised me too much above your kind, Fon Valencius. The sentinel refused to submit to me. But you can help. After all, isn't that what family is for?
I have no intention of helping you.
I am afraid that you have no choice in the matter. Try to resist, and I will demonstrate the power that the warp holds over mortals. Come to think of it, I might even take some pleasure in doing so.
Voidfear produces a strange object, a blade without a handle that shimmers blue in the light. To the void with you. The blade flashes in the dim light, and drops of blood appear on your palm. For a brief moment, you feel nauseous, your head is spinning, and then quiet whispers begin to flood your mind. More and more sourceless voices echo each other, drowning out your own thoughts, replacing them with a singular urge. Go to the gate. Go to the gate. Go to the gate. Fight the voice in your head. Get out. I am not your puppet. The voices in your head giggle and mock your desperate outcry. You feel this intruding influence forcing you onto your feet and making you take a step forward. Toward the gates, looming in the center of the chamber. In the gateway arch, you see a cogitator with a human likeness built into the front panel. As you approach, the torso twitches slightly. This is a servitor, an obedient automaton created from a lobotomized human being. The sentinel turns its head to you, one of its eye sockets lighting up with two ember-like irises. I will try. Examine the device. You look over the gate cogitator. There is little chance that you'll be able to discern anything about its design. Like any other sacred machine in the Imperium, this relic is a specialty of the machine cult of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The servitor on the gate begins to move. With a screeching and groaning of metal, it leans forward closer to you. Its lower jaw opens with a drawn-out shriek, much wider than the jaw of a living human could. The servitor's mouth is filled with sharp metallic fangs that glint in the dim light. The vid screen to the right of you lights up, showing strings of mysterious symbols on a green background. A whisper runs through your consciousness, insisting, demanding sacrifice. The voices that filled your head after Voidfear wounded you with his blade did not go away. On the contrary, their source coiled itself into a tight knot somewhere in the depths of your mind. Examine the sentinel. The servitor looks noticeably different from the ones you are used to. Its skin covering is stitched together with copper thread, and it has metal hinges in place of the standard joints. It seems that the creators of the Sentinel did everything to ensure that the service life of this unit would be much longer than that of ordinary automatons. Look for anything that could be used as a weapon. You look around in hopes of finding at least something that could work as a weapon. Your search is in vain. The chamber anteroom is completely empty and in perfect working condition. Nary a broken panel or protruding piece of rebar in sight. Look back.
Did you forget something? I suggest you hurry.
Place your hand into the Sentinel's maw. The Sentinel's jaws clamp around your hand, puncturing your skin and sinking into your flesh. A few dark drops fall into the servitor's throat, and immediately you hear humming as the servo motors start up and the pumps stir into motion. The vid screen of the cogitator flickers. Several long minutes pass. The Sentinel's jaws remain closed. You're beginning to feel sick. Perhaps if you were to lean against the gate, you could catch your breath. Maybe even close your eyes and pretend none of this ever.
High levels of caustic humors. The subject is in a state of heightened stress. Do you require assistance?
You do not understand where this quiet voice is coming from, crackling like static. Is it the Sentinel? The cogitator? Is it a figment of your wary mind? Whichever it is, you can clearly hear every word. Who is this?
Genetic code identified. Child of House von Valancius. Do you require assistance?
You hear the voice again, and this time you realize that it is coming from the two speakers built into the Sentinel's shoulders. You hear a displeased grunt in your mind, as if the lurking entity has sent something that is not to its liking. Yes, Sentinel. Traitors threaten my life and the safety of the warrant. Pain shoots through your head, and subsides just as quickly. It would seem the entity coiled in your consciousness does not have the ability to do you any real harm.
Request accepted. Initiating defense protocol.
Well, there is still another way.
Oh, it's still opened the door for us. That seems like an odd choice.
Keep your wits about you.
Still red hot from the gunfire, the engines of death froze as they finished off the heretics that had infiltrated the sanctum of the void ship.
I always have a backup plan.
I'm really excited to see the warrant of trade, but I'm going to look around first to make sure I don't miss
Is there
anything.
money to be made?
The enormous gates match the importance of the thing they protect. The massive doors are made of heavy metal and look impregnable.
Always keep your eye on the prize.
It's a lot bigger than I imagined, but so is everything in Warhammer 40k.
Let us not dawdle.
Let it be known that by my will and by the true words of this document, I appoint this person to be the bearer. Oh, I'll have to read it later, I guess.
Escort the child of the house to safety.
The servo skull's creaking gradually turns into comprehensible words. I need a weapon. I'm utterly defenseless.
Distance from the current location to the nearest arsenal. Initiating situational calculations.
The servo skull goes silent, its relays clicking. Second after second passes. You realize that the servo skull will not answer you. I need to contact someone, preferably Theodora.
Voxcast frequencies disrupted. Initiating setup. Establishing connection.
That's not voice acted. In place of the mechanical screeching, Servo Skull's Vox projects the voice of Theodora von Valancius. Distorted and ridden with static, yet still recognizable beyond a doubt. Voxmaster, restore communication with the Navigator's Sanctum. I am trying to contact the bridge. If anyone can hear me on this frequency, regroup all available forces and head to the upper decks at once. I repeat, regroup all available forces and head...
Communication protocols breached. Signal latency assessment unavailable. Unable to establish two-way connection.
What madness is happening here? Who are you? Who addresses me?
Temporary obnubilation following acute stress. Mobile unit of the Warrant Sentinel standing by.
Are you the Warrant Sentinel?
Mobile unit of the Warrant Sentinel designed as a personal escort of the child of the house and a means of communicating with the rogue trader's subjects. Mobile unit standing by.
Lead me away from here.
Middle and upper decks. Assuming the probability of safe placement in areas of concentration of armed units. Calculating. To prevent unauthorized units from breaching the warrant chamber, preemptive sealing must be initiated. The mobile unit will start executing the received order immediately after the safety of the warrant is secured.
Let it be known that by my will and by the true words of this document, I appoint this person to be the bearer of the warrant of trade, and bestow upon them and their dynasty the great mission To be the paragon of humanity, unbroken by adversity, to walk bravely first into darkness, to unite and reclaim what was lost. To triumph over nightmares untold, to hold boldly the reins of fate, to walk steadily the road of thorns, through pain to greatness.
I always keep my options open.
Alright, seal her up.
Master, whatever are you doing in the warrant chamber? How did you... Throne preserve me, what is the meaning of this?
Seneschal Abelard, or Syrian, has lost some of his former polish. His forehead is sweating, and one of the sleeves of his coat is torn and soaked through with blood. Nonetheless, despite his heavy breathing, he stands firm and his gaze is demanding, albeit somewhat surprised. He surveys the carnage around him. His brow furrows, and he places a hand on his weapon. Conrad Voigtver is a traitor. When we parted ways on the officer's deck, he stunned me somehow and brought me here.
What?
The Seneschal's eyes widen. Yeah, he hinted that he was corrupted somehow. He is clearly serving the unholy gods of the warp.
Serving the gods of the war? Kunrad is a heretic. Oh, Voigtver, you void rat. Madness. And this mutiny is likewise his doing, no doubt.
Abelard shakes his head. Voigtver openly admitted that he is the mastermind behind the mutiny.
Saints' blood! And it is small wonder that the heretics are so well organized. I thought his order to seal the passages between decks was his attempt to stop the attackers from spreading to other levels. But now I see the real reason. It was to stop the enforcers from intervening. At least you are alive, and now safe, Master. Alas, I doubt we can afford to look for a compartment to sit out this disaster. You're in a bad way. I can treat your wounds. I have a Medicaid kit with me. And, for the love of the throne, now is not a good time to be walking around the decks without means of self-defense. Here.
Abelard examines you critically. He hands you a weapon. What is this guy going on about in the background? Yeah, this is the continuation of whatever dialogue he was saying before. Of your Lord Captain, whose house each of you swore to serve to your last breath. May your souls never lose the fervor and fire that bolster your hatred for the enemies of the Imperium. Also, we finally got a sword. Fantastic. Most warriors prefer swords, for they provide more flexibility on the battlefield against close combat enemies, plus 10% parry and minus 10 to enemy weapon skill when hit. Nice. This gives us 15% armor. The character wearing this armor will dodge 40% of average enemy attacks in this chapter. Oh, cool. It gives you a chapter value. That's neat.
I refuse.
There you go. Now I feel a little safer. But chainsword. You have a higher weapon skill. Give me that one too. Alright, so he's got the Imperial World and Navy Officer Origin. He's a warrior. Okay. We'll go through and read all that stuff at a later date. Know how to do all that.
Rise to the top, or get left in the dust.
So the chainsword is a pretty iconic weapon for commissars. A chainsword and a bolt pistol. Throne's Grace, where are you going? Until we bandage your wounds and you take up arms, I, with all due respect to the heir of Lady Theodora, will not let you out the door. Okay. Fix me up then.
Let's patch you up. That is a noticeable improvement. Now you're prepared for the trials ahead.
Abelard nods in satisfaction.
The lower decks are teeming with heretics instigating the rabble to revolt. But that is the least of our problems. The ship's enforcers are rounding up the scoundrels and suppressing the resistance. The situation on the middle decks is much worse, although strike teams have already been dispatched there. All communication with the bridge and the engineering bay was lost. So, apart from scattered voxcasts, we have no information to go on. But that is not the worst of it. All these jolts and shaking are most alarming. These are signs that the navigator and the master helmsman are having difficulty translating the ship out of the warp and into real space. I fear that they may have already lost control. We must reach the navigator's sanctum and get a handle on the situation. If we can manage that, some aboard this vessel may yet survive.
He pauses when the light flickers yet again. What exactly has gone wrong with the translation?
I am no helmsman, or God Emperor preserve me navigator. However, I've spent my entire life aboard void ships equipped with warp drives, and I know that portents such as these do not bode well. It could be that the Geller field has faltered. Perhaps the navigator was struck down by warp corruption and is fighting for the last shreds of his humanity as we speak.
So navigators are a pretty interesting faction in Warhammer 40,000. They are psyker mutants that the Imperium tolerates. They're also extraordinarily influential because they're necessary for the existence of the Imperium, because that's how the Imperium navigates the warp and can spread out across the galaxy.
If we get thrown off course, we will be forever lost in the war. Naturally, we would likely not have long to live in that scenario. But I will not resign myself to such an outcome just yet.
How did you find me?
You sent me a Vox message. Specifically, a Vox cast on the officer's frequency, which I had the good fortune to receive. You mean to say you did no such thing?
Abelard tilts his head and looks at you with worry. I think the warrant sentinel may have sent that message. It appeared when I opened the chamber.
Warrant sentinel? The Lord Captain barely ever ventures down to the chamber, and I was at her side only once or twice when she did. And I did not see anything of the sort.
He looks at the servo skull floating next to you.
The warrant chamber is an ancient and rather sacred mechanism that the ship's tech priests treat with the utmost reverence. I assume that whatever it is that you did, you must have activated certain processes and caused the sentinel to awaken. But then, why did none of it happen when Lady Theodora did the same?
He frowns. Well, we were under attack, and the servitor noticed that we were in a heightened state of distress. We responded accordingly. What can we expect to find in the Navigator's Sanctum?
During warp transit, the Sanctum is closed to all who are not involved in traversing the Empyrean. And for good reason. For the Navigator to open their third eye and perceive the way, the Sanctum must be bathed in the energies of the immaterial. Only a Navigator can withstand such an ordeal. For the rest of us, any contact with the warp is fraught with perils such as loss of sanity, spontaneous mutations, and death.
Abelard does not bat an eye as he lists all the horrors that you're about to face. He Yeah, so all navigators have a third eye. They often wear a headband to cover it up when in public, or a hood. So more often than not, you wouldn't notice that they're a navigator. I heard one of Theodora's voxcasts.
Lady Theodora's. Which one? The last one I received was about the Navigator's Sanctum, and that was a good while ago. In any case, let us hope that the Lord Captain is well, and safely in charge of the ship's defense. In the meantime, we must do all we can to prevent the ship from veering off course.
For the Imperium and humanity. Lead the way, Seneschal.
Come.
Abelard nods his approval. A wave of static suddenly erupts from the servo skull. You can make out Theodora's words through the noise. To arms, loyal sons and daughters of the God Emperor. Fight the heresy and corruption that threatens to consume our home, and with all your might, destroy those who have dared.
The Lord Captain is calling her crew to battle, which means the Vox networks are set up for broadcast transmission, not message exchange. Splendid. While the rogue trader inspires proper resolve to fight in her subjects, you and I shall prove that her trust in us is well deserved. Onward!
The Seneschal's eyes light up, and he smiles with grim determination.
Don't you dare to cross us!
Okay, so you can position your party at the beginning of combat. That's useful. Oh, we can't position beside enemies, though, so we'll just go and start here. And friendly fire is a thing. As to Abelard's abilities, your new companion is a warrior. Abelard specializes in melee combat and drawing the enemy's attacks. Charge is a unique warrior ability that works only when they are using a melee weapon and is not considered an attack action. Use charge to close the distance between you and the enemy and deal damage. Pretty straightforward, don't need to read all of that. Note that charge can only be used if the character is 2 or more cells away from their target. Alright, so melee attacks hit automatically with no need for a roll. The enemy will try to dodge and parry the attack if they're using a melee weapon of their own. Melee weapons can be used to make area attacks. All creatures in the area will suffer damage unless they succeed on a dodge test, or a parry test if they are armed with a melee weapon. Damage dealt by melee weapons depends on the weapon's parameters and the attacker's strength score. Cool. So we have Strike and Cleave. So Strike, single attack with an equipped melee weapon, and Cleave, wide slashing strike which affects multiple enemies at once. And he has Charge, which we read. The warrior moves in a straight line and launches a melee attack against any target in the warrior's path. This attack does not count toward the limit of the warrior's attacks per turn. There must be at least 2 free cells between the warrior and the target to use Charge. And Brace for Impact. 1 round, the Navy officer and their allies in a 3-cell radius gain +2 deflection for each archetype taken by the Navy officer. They also cannot be forcefully moved or overpenetrated. They can only be used once per combat.
Victory is in... Indeed.
Yeah, forgot about the attacks of opportunity there. That could have been bad.
Who, if not me?
That's really satisfying. Alright, so we use that on our next turn.
Reduced to dust!
So experience, you can advance the level of your character and companions. Prevailing in battles, exploring the Coronis Expanse, and completing quests earns you experience points. And everything else is pretty straightforward. I don't think it really needs explaining here. But we did level up.
I always have a backup plan.
Collecting loot. A last pistol, and a bunch of swords. Swapping weapon sets in combat does not cost action points. That's good to know. And speaking of, let's go ahead and give him a ranged option as well. Just in case. It comes up. 6 to 8 versus 7 to 11. I'm going to keep my main character a little better equipped.
Always keep your eye
Even though
on
he
the
is playing more of a
prize.
support role. Alright, well I'm going to call it here, and next time we'll continue towards the Navigator's Sanctum and see if we can't take the ship back from the heretics. But for now, thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next one.